Hey, what's up gamers? So more than 2 weeks have passed by after my last video. You might be asking what's going on with my NES survival game. Am I still working on it? Despite the fact the game still doesn't have a final name, there are quite a few new things in it. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk about them. I've decided to improve the player's collision with the environment. The player's character used to stick to the obstacles whenever you moved diagonally and bumped into something. But from now on, the player just slides in the direction where there are no obstacles. Let's say you press up and right simultaneously, but there's an obstacle above. So now when you bump into this obstacle, you won't stop and you will keep moving to the right. I was kinda surprised that similar movement even worked in the first Zelda game, even though this game doesn't support diagonal movement at all. Another change was to make bunnies afraid of you, so now they are trying to run away. Sometimes it works and looks great, but sometimes not so much. Later I wanted to test the new collision and hunt some bunnies on a real console, but I realized the diagonal movement doesn't work that well with my Famicom Twins D-pad. So I hooked up the gamepad I made previously, the one where I put an extra effort to make the diagonal controls excellent. And guess what? My game doesn't support a controller that's connected through a Famicom's expansion port. So how about adding that support? At first I thought, well, the NES and Famicom is basically the same thing. So I'm gonna set up a third controller on Messen and read additional 8 bytes from the gamepad's address 4016. By grabbing the least significant bit from those bytes, I could read the input from the third NES controller that's connected to the multitap. So I figured that this third NES pad would match the Famicom's third pad and also the controller that's connected to the expansion port. To my surprise, I was completely wrong and the controller did not work at all on the real Famicom. Apparently the Famicom is a little bit different in this area. So instead of reading another 8 bytes, I needed to grab the second bit from the first read from the 4016 address. So the least significant bit here is the input from the player 1 controller and the next bit is the input from the gamepad that's attached to the expansion port. So in my understanding, most Famicom games are reading input in the same manner, with the exception of a few NES exclusives and some disk system ports. So after it was done, I could finally test the diagonal movement with my gamepad, and it was pretty nice. After that, I've decided to add a bunch of new items to my game. The most important addition was a reward for killing multiple NPCs at once. For instance, if you used a spear. So if you manage to hit 2 bunnies in a row, good luck with that by the way, you will get a jumbo meat. I had to shrink the default meat sprite so it would look actually smaller. I think it kinda looks now like a candy in a wrapper. Also, depending on a random chance, instead of a large piece of meat, you can get an animal hide. I'm not sure though if the sprite looks like an animal skin. What do you think? Also, you can get the same hide by killing multiple werewolves. And it is probably much easier way to obtain this item, in my opinion. Funny thing now is that whenever I craft some spears, there are almost no more than one bunny in one place. But when I go out without spears, there are tons of bunnies. I swear I haven't made this intentionally. Another new item is a fish and fishing rod. What's up with that? Yep, I had a crazy idea. Why not to add some ice fishing in the game? So I made this odd looking lake, or I guess more like a pond, next to the bear's house. I don't know if it looks like it's covered with ice, but I tried my best. I hope it doesn't look like you're floating above the water when you walk on it like some 8-bit Jesus. This pond is going to be your main fishing location for now. One of the ways to get the fishing rod in the game is to bring some jam for the bear. Instead of laying a brown brick like it used to, now the bear will give you a fishing rod in return. Another way is of course to craft the fishing rod by yourself. What interests me, can you actually figure out how to do that? I will give you a hint. One of the ingredients is located near the pond. It's also a new item. I haven't changed the crafting system yet, so it still takes only 2 items to create a new one. But the fishing rod might require multiple iterations, so you will need to craft one item first and then combine it with something else. So whenever the fishing rod is equipped and you hit the B button, the game will check the background tiles in front of the player's character. If it's one of the ice tiles, the rod will appear. That means you successfully casted the bait. Yeah, I skipped the part where you drill the hole in the ice to make things more simple. So when the rod is casted, you can't move. But I haven't fixed the walking animation, so you can still shuffle in place. I generated a random time interval for the fish to start biting, so a fish can hit instantly or you will need to wait a few seconds. But once the fish starts biting, you need to act fast and hit the B button, or you will lose the fish and the fishing rod will wear a little bit. It also wears out after you catch a fish, so the rod will not gonna last forever and you will need to craft it again or get it from the bear. Unfortunately, the rod can't be used as a weapon. When it's equipped, you'll still gonna attack with your bare hands. Not sure if it's a good idea, but oh well. There is one annoying thing you can notice while fishing or killing multiple NPCs. The items you'll get might become invisible. That's because of the NES limitation to display only 8 sprites in a row. My items are made of 2 sprites. So let's say you have pulled 4 fishes. The 5th will become invisible and it will only appear if you would pick up one of the others. I haven't made a solution to this problem yet, but this is a reminder for myself to do something about this as soon as possible. The ice fishing can drain a lot of worm points. So to protect yourself, now you can equip your character with some clothing. The only clothing you can wear now is the coat. It can be crafted from 2 animal hides. So once you got the clothing, you don't need to worry about the cold anymore, at least during the day. Unfortunately, due to the limited space in the tile set, the player character still looks the same way. The coat can also deflect some of the werewolf attacks, so it also acts like an armor. For now, only the attacks from hostile NPCs can reduce the clothing's HP. So once you craft the coat, it might last you a very long time, maybe a bit too long. I was kinda thinking what should I do about the werewolf attacks I mentioned in the last video. Basically, up until now, if you ran and collided with a werewolf, you would get hurt. It kinda played the attack animation just for the show. So now I added an additional check. If you would collide with a werewolf, the attack state will be activated, and after few frames, the game would check additionally if the player character is still there beside the werewolf. And if the player character is still there, only then it would get damaged. So this way you can avoid some of the attacks if you are quick enough. Another new feature that I thought would be an easy and quick thing to implement was the fade out and fade in animations when you go to a different locations. For instance, when you go to the house. It should hide the ugly artifacts that appear when a new tile set or palette is loaded. And it also would make the game look more polished. It's one of those things we take for granted in video games. You might not notice them when you play the games. But the games without such small details might seem, for some reason, off-putting to you. Unfortunately, the process wasn't that smooth as I thought. I wanted to reuse the subroutine I used for the sleep animation, so I had to do a lot of tweaking and rewriting. When I thought I was done with it, I noticed that the sleep animation no longer works. But eventually I made everything work and I kinda happy with the final result. I also got some unintentional animations when turning off the menu. The last change was to add a new animal. The game might seem kinda boring during the day, so I needed something to annoy you. At first I spawned one werewolf, but it felt not quite right. So I quickly drew a few placeholder sprites, and now we have the smallish Keenet. Probably I focused too much attention on the specific werewolf collision detections, so this doggo doesn't work quite right for now. Most of the time it will attack you, but sometimes it will just chill beside you. So with all these changes, I just wasted only half of the UN ROM's 128 kilobytes. I have exactly 64 kilobytes left free and about 660 bytes free in the RAM. So it's still possible to add more stuff. My current goal is to expand Bear's quests, at least to add a few more. Perhaps by completing the quest you can actually even finish the whole game, but I haven't decided about that yet. So if you want to try the game for yourself, you can download it from my GitHub repository. And if you want to see my ugly assembly code, you can also find it there. I'll put the links in the description as always. So yeah, that's about it. So don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more updates. So thanks for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye!